What is up, everybody? Jason here again from Music Deconstructed. This is going to be a really quick video as this song doesn't have a lot going on with it, but I did want to cover it. This is an older song that I did maybe 4 years ago. It's kind of one of those songs that you put out that you're not too proud of because lyrically it's just kind of cheesy. A while back I got into a fight with an ex-girlfriend of mine and I wrote these lyrics as kind of a response to that. And while lyrically I think it's kind of neat, I think it's neat within the context of what I was going through, but overall it's not the most epic thing you're ever going to hear. And like I always say at the beginning of each one of my videos, this isn't a mixing tutorial video, although I might cover a few things in regards to plugins that I use. Maybe. We'll see how I feel. And the last thing, like I always say, this is also going to sound different from the mix. I think most of the plugins are active. So that means like everything's up to date, but it still might sound different because before I made this video, I color coded a lot of the tracks. I messed with some of the settings just to kind of make it more audible for you as the listener. And I'll get into that as we go along, possibly. All right, so here we have the song. As you can tell, it's not too long. It's about 4 minutes long, 5 minutes long, 4.5. If you haven't checked it out already, check it out. I believe it's on my album called Forgotten Voices of the Past, and the song's called Love. And as you can tell, like I said before, there's not much going on. It's got a very simple verse. My songs tend to have very simple verses, while the choruses tend to kind of indulge a little bit more. They can almost sound cinematic, I guess. So here you have the basic MIDI drums. Like with most of my songs, I didn't break down the MIDI track to audio. It's still in its MIDI format. Of course, I use Easy Drummer, so it's just the basic kit. I didn't really go crazy with this. But what I did do, because with the basic kit for Easy Drummer, I don't really like the kick and the snare as much because the kick tends to be a little clicky, and when I was editing this song I didn't have a lot of the add-on packs from Easy Drummer, so I didn't really have a lot of options in regards to my kick. The same thing with the snare. I bounced the snare down, so if you were just to listen to the Easy Drummer track that I have, the MIDI track, you're going to hear everything, but you're not really going to hear the kick and the snare. You're going to hear the ambient noise from it, but you're not going to hear it, the tracks themselves. And why I did that is because I wanted to modify the kick and the drum. I wanted to kind of shape it to fit this song, so the kick isn't as clicky. It's a little more boomy. If I were to play the kick right now, it sounds more round, if you will. It still has a little bit of a click to it, but the original click was very metally. And with the snare, I wanted to add a little bit of reverb to the snare so it wasn't just so stale. And so all together with the main MIDI drum and this snare and the kick track, this is what you have. And so not much changes. You can see right here, this is where the chorus picks up, and then it goes back into the verse, and then you have the solo guitar right here, and then you have the final chorus, and the song fades out. So during the chorus, which is right in this area right here, the drums change to this. So it's a very steady beat. There's not much going on. It changes a lot during the solo over in this area right here, where the songs kind of pick up. Because of course, you know, with the solo, I wanted the song to be a little bit faster. So you get the idea. That's the drum track. That's unless you're a drummer, that's probably going to be the most boring part of this video. I wanted you to hear it by itself, though, before I get into the rest of the song. So with the rest of the song, you have the bass track, which is right in this little area right here. Let me open these tracks up a little more so you can see them better. This is the bass track. And this, I did something unique with the bass track during the chorus, which I'll show you in a second. Here are all my vocals. Generally, my vocals are at the bottom of my mix, but for this one, I just decided to move them up. And I think a lot of it had to do with I was trying to time align my vocals with the drums so I wasn't so off. I tend to do that, and usually when I do that, I'm not always off, but sometimes I am, so I have to adjust my phrasing to match the beat. But then I usually move the verses or the vocals down. I just didn't do that with this one, so I'll just keep them here for right now. Here you have your main guitar riff that plays behind the verse, and then you have your guitar riff that plays behind the chorus. And then you also have it come in right here during the solo, and then it goes back into the chorus. So this one, the structure of the song's kind of different in that it goes verse, chorus, verse, and then solo, and then chorus. So it's not verse, chorus, solo, chorus. I took out the second chorus because I just didn't want to make it too redundant. And of course, right here you have your little solo guitar that plays in. This is the original solo guitar. When I rewrote this song a few months back, I made a lot of changes. I re-sang my vocals and everything. I actually added these chorus guitar parts in here. I had them before, but I re-added them. I rewrote them basically just to make them sound better. But this is the original solo. Underneath all this, you have basically your synth section where you have this whole song was written around this little tone right here, which you're going to hear in a second. I tend to do that. I'll find a neat tone, and I'm like, oh, let's go with that. And then I write a song. So that's the main tone. And then you have some synths that creep in during the chorus. And then I have this weird key sound, that keyboard sound that comes in at the end of each verse. So that's what you have for this song. So let's go ahead and start with the bass. And I'm just going to do what I do in all my videos. I'm going to break it down by verse, and then I'm going to break down the chorus, and then I'll show you the solo, and that should be it. So again, this isn't going to be a long video. So when the verse comes in, of course, you heard the drums at the beginning of the drums. Before I get into the bass, let me go to the bottom here and show you what the synth sounds like. And then I'll go to the guitars, and I'll show you the bass. So here we go with the synth. This is the very first part of the song. And that's all there is to it. One thing I didn't do is I didn't take this out during the rest of the song. But the reason I didn't do that is because it wasn't so noticeable throughout the song. But it would every once in a while creep in there. And I liked how it would every once in a while randomly just creep into this song. And you'll know what I'm talking about if you listen to it. It's just this random noise that will come in. So I just decided to keep it throughout the song. It's not very invasive. So the next thing that comes in is you have your guitar verse. So at first, what I did with this, I panned this guitar track sort of to about 50 to the left at first. And I did this before the song starts, and also I did it right before the second verse picks up. Because what happens is I didn't want the guitar to be all the way to the left. I wanted it to kind of be sort of the center, but not all the way in the center. And then what happens is when the second guitar comes in right here, they both pan all the way hard left and hard right, so it gives you more of a stereo spread. So when this guitar comes in, I'll play it by itself, and I'll play it with the synth after that. This is the guitar. Okay, so what I did with the second guitar riff, when the song actually comes in, you're gonna hear the second guitar riff. But what happens is I re-recorded this one too, and I wanted it to have a different tone, so it wasn't the same tone guitar both left and right. I wanted it to have some sort of individuality, if you will. So it's a little more distorted and it's a little less clear, but you'll hear what happens right here, right in this section. And that's pretty much it. So the next thing that comes in is the bass. And now the bass for the verse, for both verses, of course, they're the same. So here we go. This is my bass line. And it's got, I don't know if I want to call it a funky feel or whatever, but I wanted it to have more of a groovy sound to it. And like always with all my basses, there is a little bit of a distortion here, more so in the chorus, but definitely in the verse. Now, all together, I'm going to play everything except for the vocals right now. All together, this is what you're going to hear when the song comes in. So I'm going to start it right before the first little synth. Actually, I'll start it right. I'm going to skip the first two synths so you can kind of hear what happens when the guitars and the bass and the drums come in. All right, so the last two things with the verse, I'm going to show you one thing and then the vocals. At the very end of each verse, you have this key, this piano key sound. I remember when I created this, I added a lot to it to make it sort of an exaggerated effect. So this is what you have at the end of each verse, is this key right here. If I remember correctly, that sound comes from Heaviosity. It's either Evolved Mutations 1 or 2. I can't remember. But I found that sample, that sound, and it sounded really good to me. I think I add a little bit more distortion into that to just give it more of a distorted key sound. So all together, minus the vocals, you have this sound that comes in. And the reason I added this is because I wanted to add some kind of change to the vocals. And I also wanted to add more of a sense of, shit's about to go down, if that makes any sense. So here we go with everything right before that crazy key. All right, and so the last thing for the verse is you have my vocals. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer here. When I recorded these vocals, I wasn't quite aware yet of how bad my AC unit or my heating unit was, as far as how much the white noise creeps in. It works for the song because I do distort my vocals, and but now I have to be more careful. Whenever I do record vocals, I have to make sure everything's off, everyone's sleeping. So when you hear this and you're going to hear the white noise, it works for the song. I was able to make it fit. But also the way I did this, because not that I can sing any better now, but when I first originally wrote this song, I wasn't good at singing. And so I decided to do a spoken word type of phrasing for this song. So by itself, here's what you have. And of course, I added distortion here. I added a distortion plugin to both my vocals. I also doubled my vocals, which is why you see two tracks. And I added a lot of reverb and a lot of delay just to kind of make the vocals a little more jumbled sounding. But as you'll be able to tell, I did it in such a way that, by itself, you can hear all this shit happening, but within the mix, it actually can be, you can pick out the vocals. At least I hope you can. So here's what the vocals sound like by themselves.
You were always the angel inside of my head.
I cannot explain why my feelings are dead. I could never believe that this hatred inside would rise up and wash all your pain aside. I'm fighting these feelings that are growing within. I'm suffering these torments. So all together now, this is what you have for the verse. So I'm going to start it right when it kicks in, so you can hear both the guitars and you can hear the vocals and everything else. So here you go. So that's what you have for the verses. And both verses pretty much, they do the same thing, except for the second verse goes on a little bit longer, because when I wrote these lyrics, I just wanted a few more things to say. So, of course, the creepy keys that come in right here, they go on a little bit longer. The verse goes on longer, and my vocals go on longer. And that's pretty much it. Now, for the chorus, things change up. The song becomes prettier, so to speak. And so I'm going to kind of jump around here. I'm going to show you the guitars first for the chorus. So you heard the main guitars, which are these right here. Well, for the chorus, I wanted them to ring out a little bit more. So I used my 11 rack and I added a guitar to the left and the right channel. They're very dry guitar, not a lot of gain. And then I added like a thickener guitar. I created a stereo track and I recorded a more gainy, reverberated guitar sound, which isn't really prominent. It's just there to kind of back up these two guitars right here. And in fact, I'll show you that right now. So you have your left guitar right here, which sounds like this. And then your right guitar, which is the same guitar, just recorded differently. And I didn't mean recorded differently, I meant separately. But then you have your third guitar, which is a stereo. And all together, this is what it sounds like. And it repeats that cycle. So you have your guitars, they're kind of a backup. And with the drums, this is what the guitars sound like. All right, so I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit. You have your guitars, you have the drums that I just played. The bass, I'm going to cover in a second because I had to do something very unique with this bass and the synth and the synths, which you'll hear in a second. But first, I want to cover the vocals. So here are the vocals by themselves. I decided to actually sing these vocals, so it's not me talking, it's me actually singing. Again, the whole premise of the song is like, I love you, but you're fucking crazy kind of thing. So here are the chorus vocals by themselves, and then I'll play in with the drums and the guitar, and then we'll move on. So here we go. I love you, I really do. Very pitchy. But your constant aggression is driving me to a world without hope, a feeling of pain, A numbing reminder of the man I became. All right, now with the guitars and the drums, here's what you have. I love you, I really do. But your constant aggression is driving me to a world without hope, a fear. So you get the idea. Now here is where things got complicated for me. When I recorded the bass line, I was still in my bass heavy phase where I was trying to be a virtuoso on the bass. So when I wrote the bass line, it didn't really fill out the bottom end of the mix. It didn't make the chorus sound exciting. So here's what you have with the chorus bass. Now, yes, it is intentionally distorted like that. Like I do with all my basses. If this is the first video that you watch by me, I tend to distort my basses a lot. This one I over distorted, but I kind of did it for a reason, because how I compensated, how I made up the lack of low end with this bass for this chorus is I added a synth. So if you scroll down, if you look at everything, this is these are my drums, this is my bass, drums being on top. These are my vocals, and then these are my chorus guitars, and everything below this line are my synths. And so what I did here is this track right here, it's a synth bass track, and I basically added this to support the flow of the chorus. And this is it by itself. It's this track right here. And if you look right here, I did take out a lot of the low end from this synth because it was really, really bass heavy, and I already had a lot of other things going on in the song. I don't tend to high pass filter everything that I run across, but this one I had to, because again the synth was very, very bassy. I don't want it as bassy. So when you hear this synth bass with the regular bass, you'll hear kind of what happened here. So. So, all together, this is what we have with the chorus and everything. I am going to omit these last two synth parts because I want you to hear the song as is without these, and I'll explain why I did these in a second, these last two tracks that are highlighted here. So this is everything else. So, as you can tell, there's really not a lot of color going on in the song. It's still kind of a low-key song. So I had to add two things. One is a very random synth sound that I found. I don't remember what program that I used to create this. It could have been something with Reason, but I haven't used Reason in years. So I found this sound, and then of course I played with the notes on the keyboard, and this is what I came up with for this little creepy sine wave. By itself, it's really annoying, but within the mix, it kind of fits. So here we go. It's this track right here. that's what you have. So all together, this is what the chorus sounds like now.
Starts your grand.
So the last thing I wanted to do, because it still didn't sound pretty, because I wanted there to be kind of a passive-aggressive dynamic to this song, where the verses were very kind of aggressive, but the chorus was very passive-aggressive. So I needed to add one more thing. So I found this little pretty, again, this is also a case of me not remembering what program I used. It could have been a Reactor. I know there's some add-on packs for Reactor from Native Instruments that I use, and it might have been one of those. But anyway, I found this sound, but then I decided to add some delay into the sound. I call it the pew pew track, and this is what it sounds like by itself. And the other thing I did too is I started this track. So instead of it starting on the beat where it's supposed to start, I had it start just a little bit before, because it was kind of like one of those deals where, okay, this measure's about to start, but something's about to come in, and this is that little pew pew track that's about to come in. So instead of it starting right here, let me back up a little bit. This is where it should have started. It starts right here, a little bit before the chorus, or the second half of the chorus, rather. So this is what it sounds like with everything. Let's close up the tracks. This is where everything kind of drops out for a second. Get your fill.
I sit in the darkness, afraid of the light. I thought this was normal.
And that's pretty much it. At the end of this verse, it goes into the guitar solo, and literally nothing changes. Like, the guitars for the chorus are still the same. They don't repeat themselves at all. I mean, they repeat themselves, but they don't change at all, is what I meant to say. And so it goes all the way through. This is where the last chorus starts. And then, of course, all the synth sounds, they're all the same. The bass line's the same. So nothing changes. The only thing that gets added are the drums get a little more crazy, and then you have this guitar solo right here. So you've already heard the drums, so let me go ahead to the guitar solo and solo that and let you hear what it sounds like by itself, and then I'll play it all together. One thing I do want to point out is one of the ways I tame my delay, because I use a lot of delay. One of the ways that I tame it is, first of all, I create a submix, and I'll have my original track feed into that submix, or auxiliary send, same thing. I'll have it feed into the auxiliary send and then back into the track. But I also make the feedback with the delay, so it only repeats one time. I could have the aux track send back into itself, or I could just put the delay track onto the track I'm trying to affect and adjust the feedback for the delay to make it repeat over and over and over again. But I generally, with my delays, have them repeat one time, which is why if I play this and stop it, you hear one. It's a ping pong delay. Actually, it's a mono delay. And with my buses over here, I have two separate delays going into this. One pan left and one pan right. I could have done a stereo delay, but whatever. But again, I tend to make it so the delay only happens one time. The same thing for my vocals, unless I'm going for a repeating effect. And so if you're messing with delays and it gets really cloudy, just try to remember, you know, you can do a delay one of two ways. You can have it repeat for a while, or you can just have it repeat once and then have it stop. That's what I do. But anyway, that's the solo. And I can get more into that too. If anybody really wants to know some delay techniques, write me an email or whatever, and I might cover that and show you what I do. But this is the song right after the second verse into the solo.
All I could feel was me dying inside.
And that's pretty much it. There's not much else to this song. So I promise you this would be a somewhat short video. Again, it's because I didn't do a lot with this song. It was a very basic song that I wrote years ago when I was first starting off with my songwriting. And I was just trying to figure out how to put sounds together. And so I didn't go too crazy with this. And you know, even though it can be cheesy, I admit that, it's still one of the few songs that I wrote back then that actually I'm impressed with myself with, and that's the thing about music is if you're happy, or if the people that you're working with are happy, that's really all that matters. And you know, music is very subjective. Some people won't like it, some people won't like the mix, and that's okay, because that's what makes songwriting so fun. That's what makes mixing so fun, is you're always going to learn something new, and you're always going to hear a different opinion and how you could have done things better. And the trick is not letting that get to you, and learning how to take the advice or take the critiquing and going, how can I make this better? Will that critique work for me? Will it make me happier with my songwriting? Or is it just something that isn't going to make sense with what I do? So that's, you know, that's the one advice I'm going to give you for this video. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Check out my website, aloststateofmind.com. Check out my songs. Let me know what you think of them, and they're all free. If you want to download them, you can pay if you want, but that's totally up to you. I'm not asking for any money for any of this stuff. And if there's any songs on there that you want me to deconstruct that I haven't already, and furthermore, if you're curious about what exactly I did for this or that effect, let me know. I'd love to talk about it. So that's about it. Thank you, as always, for watching.